What is the shittiest advice you've ever gotten? That I better catch me a man, because I was getting old. I was 19, and at the wedding of a 20 and 21-year-old. There wasn't even alcohol, because majority of the guests were underage. I'm no longer friends with those people for many reasons, not the ones that got married. They moved and we lost touch, but the ones telling me to catch a man still live in the same city and we don't speak. If I married the guy I was dating at 19, 20, I would be a very bitter, angry person. Some people find the person they were meant to be with at a young age. I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't succumb to the pressure, just because everyone else around me thought that they had. I met my husband when I was 25 and everything's been going good. I made the right decision. Why do people think that's okay to say to anyone at any age? Right? 'Cause that's a good basis for a healthy relationship. Desperate and insecurity. It will happen when, and if it happens. Loads of people are getting married in their 30s. Or not at all, which is perfectly fine too. Crime in Italy is at 1920 again. Who thinks 19 is old? That's prime time, girl. You were just a baby. Just in general, I think the popular quote "live every day like it's your last" is a terrible piece of advice. Nobody can live every day like it's their last, because it's not feasible. If it were my last day and I knew it, I would not go to work. I'd spend my day with my family and friends. I'd eat the unhealthiest pub food poutine. I'd drink and laugh and spend all of my money. If I did this every day, I would be poor, unhealthy, and delusional. The truth is that the quote should be learn or take something special from each day, because normal, average days are okay too, and telling people to live like they are dying means that people feel useless if they are not being wild or doing out of the box things. I constantly see people my age 20s complaining when they return from traveling, or complaining about working full time because they aren't living to their fullest. But you can live a peaceful, simple life and be happy and fulfilled. I forgot about redid my whole workday after posting this. Now I come back half an hour before the end of my day to gold. Thank you everyone. I'll work on replying to some of the children now. Have a good weekend. Yeah, I know, son. Being with a woman is a lot like eating at a fancy restaurant. If you order the lasagna, you should eat the lasagna. That's the entree you picked, and you owe it to the lasagna to clean your plate. But as long as you're going to clean your plate, it's okay to try a bite of other foods here and there. That's not neglecting your lasagna, it's just making sure that lasagna is really as good as you think it is. And if you like a different dish more, it's better to find out now, before you're full. This said while encouraging me to cheat on my girlfriend while we were on a family vacation. I don't understand. Where are you getting access to the other entrees? Are you just walking around with a fork, taking bites of other people's food, then going "you should have got the lasagna"? Well, in fact, he turned to his neighbor at the other table and asked if they could let me try a bite of one of their appetizers. The metaphor breaks down, but he was trying to set me up with his neighbor's daughter. When I was visiting him on my summer vacation, my parents are divorced, and at the time, lived about 2,000 miles apart. I was a teen dad supporting a stay-at-home wife and kid, and was going to engineering school at the same time. I kept getting advice from adults that I should quit school, pick a safe job and work my way up. Why work a part-time near minimum wage job or internship when I could quit and work full-time as landscaper or utility worker and make $3 an hour more? That was 20 years ago. Today I probably make 3 or 4 times what a landscaping or utility career would have yielded, and I'm in a career that I love. It's taken me all over the world and opened some amazing opportunities. Getting a job and moving up in the company doesn't really work like that anymore, especially if you don't have an education. Most places I have worked for hire outside applicants to avoid conflicts that can happen when a person is suddenly manager of people who were once their peers. I was getting a hard time in school from other kids. The advice I received was just ignore them. Anyone who's being bullied will tell you that simply ignoring it is not possible because bullies don't allow you to ignore them. Just ignore the theft, physical abuse, and verbal harassment. There is no throbbing in my jaw where I was punched. There is no throbbing in my jaw where I was punched. There is no throbbing in my jaw where I was punched. There is no throbbing in my jaw where I was punched. There is no throbbing in my jaw where I was punched. There is no throbbing in my jaw where I was punched. There is no throbbing in my jaw where I was punched. There is no throbbing in my jaw where I was punched. There is no throbbing in my jaw where I was punched. There is no throbbing in my jaw where I was punched. Broke my arm in the 4th grade. The teacher's advice was to get a drink of water as the only form of medical attention, until I finally convinced them to call my parents. It didn't fix my broken arm. I dislocated my knee in 8th grade, was told to walk it off. That didn't help. Walk it off. I broke my ankle playing some pickup church football. I'd sprained and twisted ankles before. This was much different. Best part was we had 2 general practice doctors, a chiropractor, and ex-military medic, that all said it was nothing, and to walk it off. I had snapped my ankle straight through both sides, and ended up having 6 months of therapy to walk again. So in the end you walked it off then? It's just walking it off with extra steps. Our relationships told me to dump my girlfriend when she tested positive for Hodgkin's lymphoma, right after I met her 3 years ago. Now we're engaged, and she's been cancer-free for 2 years. Our relationships told me found the problem. I've never asked for advice from them, but whenever I end up there, I do find there are some reasonable voices, just drowned out by the most dramatic ones. Just scroll down a few comments maybe, and read the ones that don't sound like they're talking, like they're in an apocalypse or something. I'm sorry you're telling me his first words when he greeted you were "Hey, how are you?" Dump him now before it's too late. I went to the dentist once because my wisdom tooth was growing in sideways and cutting my gum, and it was swelling up and really painful. The entire time he's looking at my teeth has trying to convince me to get braces for one crooked tooth I have in the front, and I keep asking him what to do about my swollen gum, and he told me to just brush your teeth harder, also just think more positive. Brush until you wear away your gums. You can't have gum pain if you don't have gums. Lol, my wife's dentist keeps telling her to get braces, and she proceeds to ask for the 5k to get them. They ain't cheap. I had to miss some high school orchestra rehearsals because I had gotten a job performing for a musical. My conductor said taking gigs is not a good way to start your career in music. Yeah. Try again, bub. It's dead is the best way to start your career. People don't want inexperienced musicians. He sounds like he was jealous of your success. He probably couldn't get a gig on his own. You know what's the best way to start your career in music? Neither do I. I flunked out of music, but I'm pretty sure high school orchestra conductor is not the answer. I have Asperger's, so I had an IEP in high school, which meant I also had a special ed teacher who was my case manager. When I was in high school, I think senior year but maybe junior, she told me that I couldn't go to college and that I should start flipping burgers for a living, like I could actually make a living wage flipping burgers or the like. This was at a parent-teacher conference and everyone but her was livid. 7 years and one unrelated psychotic break later, I finally have an AA degree. It's not much but it's something. Thanks for the gold. You shouldn't pursue a career in accounting because there isn't a need for them. You'll be better off in an engineering field because I want only the best for my daughter. Her dad told me that we broke up. Sorry, didn't realize this would take off. We didn't break up because of the dad's advice. It was completely unrelated. Thanks for the support. Literally every single business needs an accountant. Sometimes entire firms. As an accountant, should have become an engineer. Didn't want to join the stereotype at that time. Was told I should practice drinking and driving so I could figure out exactly how much I can drink and still be able to drive safely. Like the Family Guy cutaway. Peter, don't worry, Lois, I figured out how many beers I can have and still drive. Cut to Peter driving, swerving all over the place. Camera tight as Peter pulls into driveway and exits car. Peter 7. Camera widens to show a toddler and tricycle embedded in the front of the car. Peter 6. Do you remember what episode this was? to get a degree, to go into newspaper journalism, because it's what I wanted to do, and I was good at it. The career field started imploding within a year of my graduation, and then the recession decimated it. I made $28,000 or less for the first 10 years. I'm still paying off my college debts. Nothing compares to getting death threats from both sides of the same political articles while making 2 roommates level salary, driving 20-year-old cars, and eating beans and rice. You're guaranteed to get a job if you get a college degree. Was fed that line all through grade school. I regret going to college. It was a waste of money and didn't make it any easier to find a job. It's all about networking now. Know people who know people. It's the only way. I hate that this is the new norm. I'm an engineering student and not a very outgoing person, so I struggle with the whole networking thing because being around people too long and keeping up with social media or etc just exhausts me. I was told to rent an apartment I could barely afford when I started my first job in Los Angeles. Let me stress that this is a terrible idea. Only rent what you know you can afford for as long as you're bound to the lease. It can ruin you to live in a major city without a job and leased into something you can't support. Also, if I rented higher, I couldn't have afforded furniture or any nights out with friends. Spend conservatively. You don't need to move away and go to college. Just stay here with me and I can get you a job down at the shop. Coming from my dad, who is a mechanic and lives in a small town with a population of sub 4,000, who has been making just above minimum wage all his life. Or what? He sounds like he's just going to miss you and wants you close by. I mean, very bad advice still, but sounds like it comes from a caring man. I opened up to my parents that I might have been molested when I was 6 years old. They told me it's not that big of a deal and that it happened to every girl, so I should get over it. Sadly, I didn't get over and went to find advice elsewhere. I'm more concerned that they believe this happens to every girl. So, your mother, your grandmother? I'm sorry this happened. And this was their response.